Hey there, Sam back with you. Tuesday, December 26th. We're mid-morning here, and I had a couple actually, interested in ADA, Cardano, to Bitcoin. So I've got it up here on Bittrex. Now, has been somewhat trickier. So I remember when we had done some video on this earlier after this move, and I remember getting some very harshly worded comments from videos I posted about people outraged that I was calling this an ABC correction, and that we were just getting started. Well, I mean, I don't know how you argue with that, right? So I mean, so long term, yeah, if they were holders, good for you. I'm glad you caught it. What I try and do here is show you where the opportunities are for low risk, high reward potential entries, right? I'm not trying to make any long-term predictions about where a coin is going, just how would a swing trader approach trading it with this methodology. So to get to that, so all I've done here is I've just wicked off the lowest low here after here's the ICO when it hits Bittrex. Here's our lowest low after this sideways action where we start to get some structure and we can put a count on it. So remember now, back then that looked enormous, right? So here we had the 1 2. This was a technical pivot here. Then we got the 1 2 3, as I recall. That was also a technical pivot for us, and then the big scream up higher. So let me, if I put it, let's see if I can get it. Let's go down to the 1 hour, where this at that time, right? So here we had the ABC. Now this was, so let me show this to you so I'm going back. So what's the point of going back is to get some degree of, one, how technically it's trading, and to confirm your pivots, because you want to see technical reaction at your pivot. So as I recall from watching this trade, that we had the A wave here. We go up just shy of the 618 and we go down. So Algo's got their target. On the short sale there, now I'm not a short seller in crypto. Very, very rarely do I even consider it. And I did not short the market there. But what this told me was that we had good structure. We had potential there for that to be a good C wave, since we had the very clear, impulsive move up, and then we corrected in a very clear, very deep 3 wave. But it's technical, and additionally, remember, you've got to look at that in the context of our 2 wave here. So as I recall, this was very, very deep, but still valid. So we get that pivot here. So we go all the way to the 786 on this, which is extremely deep for a 4th wave here, as I've currently got it labeled. So there was some question mark about that. I think we took a bite at it here at the 6.5, got a little reaction, and then ended up with a very small loser, just trying to think back to the last time we traded this. But working from this pivot here of my 2, looking for the expectation that I've got a 3 high and a 4 can go that deep. It's unusual for a 4th to go that deep, but look, we had this very nice structure here. Here's my wave 1 high. We don't overlap it. Yeah, 786 is deep, but given the size of the ABC, that certainly played technically. So now looking at where that's going, so if you work off of that as your algo target, right? So we can see way up here. So we get all the extremes. So from here, and we'll measure this as well, but here's the first one. You can see the little reaction there. Then we hover at the negative 618 and ends up going all the way to the negative 100, which is an extreme for an algo pull, but it gets there, and we're technical along the way. So looking here for our 2 before we launch, here was the last really good technical setup. So on the assumption that you had the 4 in, and that we know a 2 can go between anywhere from the 50 to the 786, that was the last time we had a good trade at it. And it looked as though on the way up that you had your 3rd here. It's been relabeled to accommodate the price action, because that at that time, right? So when you're right here, that looks like a very good 3, like we've got a 1 2 3 and we're putting in a 4. Well, given that price action, you have to relabel it. So we get a 1 2 1 2. Right? That's a high class problem to have if you're long from here, and we're relabeling, because remember, if you just think about how you would have measured that. So here's my 1, my 2. If I pull this over so you can see it, here's my highest probability zone for a third, and we get this reaction here. We actually end up getting through it. But that very much looked like that was our 3, 4, and then we're going up. But again, high-class problem, and this is why we're in crypto. When 3s get turned into 1s, you know you got a good trade going on. So if I get back to some perspective here, so we get a 1, 2, and then a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 within our 3, 4, 5 to top it. So we have a count there that plays, which would imply now that we've topped. So this entire structure here, from the 1, the 2 here, to this 3, down for the 4, and then we get this clean subdivision into a 5th. So we have just excellent technical trading and perfect subdivision. So with the assumption now, if we are complete, if we have completed that 5-wave sequence, we're looking for the 2-wave. So we've got to go all the way back to the lowest low that we can find to retrace the entire thing, right, per Elliott theory. So we're going to go, and that's why I wick these off so I can just pull from down here so I don't have to go scroll over. So if I get right on it, up to my high. Okay, well, I mean, so this is kind of interesting. So we know a 2-wave, while it can retrace as little as 38, the highest probability zone is between the 50 and the 618. So we get a pretty wide zone down here. So how would you go about trying to narrow that down? Well, this is interesting, right? So prior resistance here potentially offering some support. So that's a candidate there. So that gets my attention right off the bat. And if we're going to come down that deep for a second, well, you know, keep in mind, what does that tell you about your third? Right? So if this is all just a 1-wave, even though that looks like a giant move, relative to where this could be going, if that's a 1-wave, well, we're just getting started, right? So if we put it into the larger context, right, of waves within waves, we're just looking for this. So let me put that in a larger degree so it makes sense. Let's go up to intermediate. Okay, that's what you're trading right now, per an Elliott count, right? So you know whether you use that or you see the benefits of it. I mean, you could just say, okay, I'm looking for low to high. I'm looking for the 50 because I know algos are likely to be buyers there, and I've got this prior resistance. That's the simple way to trade it. Well, if we're trying to get a little bit more precision into our entry zones and where we might find high probability entry zones, well, just again, statistically, we know that this is a high probability zone not only for algo participation, but that's where our wave 2 is likely to be. And we had this very simple ABC, even though it took a lot of time. That's a pretty simple ABC. So the fact that we're getting complexity here, that's Elliott's rule of alternation, that we go from a simple correction to a complex correction. So there's really nothing surprising here. This sideways action shouldn't be surprising. Now, one potential scenario is that this all gets relabeled, that we end up calling this the third, and this is a fourth. And that you know, you can't be absolute about anything right now. I see a completed 5-wave structure, but if we're gonna hover here in this zone here, which would be not uncommon for a 4th wave, if we're going to relabel this as a third and we're putting into a 4th here, you know, I mean, that's potentially a relabeling that could play. So we may end up with 1, 2, 3. I'd have to sort of work backwards to get to see how we complete there as a 1, but I'm sure we could do it. So then you'd have a 1, 2, potentially this is your 3. And so how will we get a handle on that? Well, if we're going to hover around in here, so where's the likely target for the 4th would be between the 23 and the 38. So if we're going to come into this zone and then we start to take off again, that's the only way we can qualify this and relabel it, knowing that we end up with a 3, 4. If we come down to the 50, where I would anticipate the next trade, well, then we stick with the 1, 2. So we'll wait and see. Now this is, you know, choppy. We're sideways here, consolidation, whatever you want to call it. Either way, I don't see a trade there, at least for me. So this, you know, we'd have to open that up and see what we can get any kind of handle on that. So I see just a lot of 3-wave junk there. So just, yeah, you could probably, you know, you don't. Here's another potential tell. It's very uncharacteristic to have a triangle in the second wave. So if this is going to continue to chop sideways, that adds credibility to the potential relabeling of this as a third rather than as a first. If we're going to stay in this consolidation pattern and we end up with an A, B, C, D, E, or potentially a W, X, Y where we're connecting to, then this potentially could be our X wave. There's a couple of different scenarios here. Right now, if you're not long, I don't see the kind of risk reward parameters that I would look for. So I'm in a hurry up and wait here. I'd like to see this come down, into this zone, but this is not, that's not ideal for a second wave, right? So we could see some more traction as this pushes down here. So we could end up labeling the entire thing. So we might end up with an A, B, and then a C. So let me put that potentially could be there. So in effect, we just need more information. So that could play. So we've got an A, 3 wave into a B. So that, the tell is always the 3 waves. Those are where you can start to get confidence in your count. So potentially here, we've got an A. So if I put the wave on it, you would see an A, B, C. So we might also, if in the same interest, looking for structure, do something like that. So there we hit the median line. I'd rather be a buyer down here at the lower parallel, but we may not get there. This is uncharacteristically choppy for a second. But again, that's a really steep move that we've just gone through, and that may be taking some time to process that. This is where I'd be paying attention, but if I see this take off, then we'll relabel it, knowing that we end up with a fourth here, and then if we're going to go into a fifth, there'll be opportunity for either the second or the fourth to get on board there. Right now, it's just to hurry up and wait and see what kind of new information the market offers to us. Let it reveal a little bit more about what it's doing. So some awfully good trading here. If you caught any of that, good for you. Congrats. Now let's see if there's another opportunity, at the 50. Okay, guys, I'll wrap it there.